All right, we'll go ahead and get started just to keep things on time. Thank you everybody for being here early in the morning. I think we do get much better attendance, hopefully early in the morning before we get our day started. That's one of the things I've noted doing on other committees. The smaller hospitals tend to get going early in the morning and we work all day. There's not any set time to do meetings during the day. We just kind of have to plow through it. So speaking of that, if you'll sign in using your QR code in the SurveyMonkey survey, we would appreciate that. That'll help us take better attendance and keep everybody up to date with being on the phone calls and as far as deliverables and things like that that we need to do. We'll also take a few minutes to look at the minutes. I do appreciate Gabriella doing these all the time. They're incredible. I have one issue with the minutes, and it's just more of a grammatical thing. On page concerning March pause update, the first paragraph, the fourth line says currently we have a draft PowerPoint and have already completed an initial class at Lake Blackshear. It really wasn't a class per se, as March pause is we're not to the point of teaching a class yet. I'd like to change this to organizational meeting because this was purely more of an organizational meeting where we started talking about the curriculum and starting to put together a basic curriculum. So, but that's the only admission, correction, or deletion I have for the minutes.
I move that we make those, that we approve the minutes with those changes.
Thank you, Damien. Any second to that?
Alicia Register, a second.
Thank you, Alicia. Dr. Register, appreciate it. All those in favor? And any opposition to that? Hearing no opposition, we'll say that the minutes are approved as is. I'm going to turn it over to Liz real quick for the GTC updates, and we'll probably have some cross things here going on through the GTC updates and old business for the next few minutes. So I'll turn it over to Liz for a few minutes.
Hey, can you hear me still?
Yes, you can, Liz.
Just making sure. Okay, good. Thanks and good morning, everyone. I just a couple quick updates for you. One is we are getting ready, very excited for the ACS Rural Focus consult visit. There's an agenda item on that, so I won't take up time on that, but that is a lot of our efforts are sort of going into that. The one thing that I want to make sure everybody on this call was aware is that you all are in the process now, if you haven't already, of signing your amended contract, which is historically GTC got additional funds as part of the amended budget, which is sometimes called the mid-year budget. That's when the legislators go through and they do sort of what we call the true up with the super speeder funds. Essentially what that resulted in was double your readiness funding. So I bring that to your attention because I want to make sure that you all know that that money either is coming or has come to you already. So, you know, you want to make sure that you know where those funds are going. And I can send everybody out a spreadsheet where you could see exactly the additional funds that you got, but it did equate to about an additional allotment of your, almost a full allotment of your readiness funds. So look out for those, they're coming. And I know a lot of you have other initiatives, educational initiatives that you want to do in your center. So you do have that money at your disposal. Sometimes it's hard, that money sort of goes into the black hole and we lose track of it. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Getting ready in October for the level 4s. Thank you everybody that's participating in the level 4 consult visits with the Pennsylvania Trauma System Foundation. We look forward to that. The November commission meeting is going to be a huge celebration of all things rural. So I hope as many of you can come to that. The PTSF will come and do an overview of the strengths, opportunities, and recommendations from those visits. And I think that's all I had since we have the ACS as a separate agenda item.
Okay, Liz, thank you. We'll go on into our old business. And talk about the first thing is the March pause update. Right now, the main thing I wanted to mention on this, we're still in our mid-infancy, if you will, with putting things together. I think we're having another small committee meeting coming up in August at the state meeting. But at this point, the grant has reached its first year. We're doing a couple of things with that. Right now, the main thing is trying to get a timeline to complete things and get our first product and hopefully a pilot on the ground and at 3 centers over the next couple of months. I think you'll hear a little bit more about this in the next meeting once we have a chance to kind of organize what we've got. I think we got the basics of information at the first meeting or the main meeting at Lake Blackshear a few months ago. We're just trying to put together how we can roll that out and put together a pilot program within the next couple of months. Anything else you want to add to that, Liz?
Since we have Damien and Courtney on the call, I wanted to ask if they wanted to provide any updates on the grants.
The only different things that's substantive, we have had meetings with the folks at Mercer, and we're going to be working a little bit closer with those. We've got a lady, Dr. Casey Bridges, who is a PhD in instructional technology. So she's going to help us put together the PowerPoint and the slide presentation. So we do hope to have a meeting fairly quickly with her and some key clinical people to work through that process.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, my comment is just let's keep pushing forward and get to a product that we can start offering out, at least a demo soon.
All right, thank you, Damien. Going into the ACS consult process, this is extremely important. I don't think I really appreciated how big this project's going to be, but it's very interesting to look at. For those of you who may not know, we have, as the state, the GTC has contracted with the ACS to provide the very first rural focus visit and consult in the country. And it is, before this, the ACS has done systems consults, but never really drilled down and looked at the rural area per se. They've looked at a whole state as it is, and we're kind of having to pilot this program with them. We have come up with the basic of our PRQ questions that are coming up. We're having to do this in addition to them because they don't have a basic set that's already ready. And I think it's been very exciting with Liz, Gina, and the other people involved with the process, coming up with looking at what we think are the major issues that we have in Georgia. Right now, we're also in discussions with them. I hope we should finalize that in the next couple of weeks. I think we have a meeting next week about some stakeholder meetings that we're going to have around the state. So we're going to ask you to come to one of these stakeholder meetings. Right now, we're looking at hopefully 3 meetings, maybe 2, but hopefully 3, so it'll be a little bit easier to drive to those meetings for you. You won't have to come to a central location, but we'll have them around, hopefully one more northeast Georgia, one southeast, and one southwest or central area as far as Georgia is concerned. Those will be announced hopefully in the next couple of weeks as well while we make plans. But this whole group will actually come to each one of these stakeholder meetings over a week period of time to hear what your concerns are and to start to piece together the picture, if you will, of what Georgia's rural trauma system looks like and what what we have available, what our strengths, weaknesses, and other things that we can do. So hopefully this will be a good process for us. Liz, do you want to say anything else concerning this right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what we need folks' input on is choosing the locations. And so part of what we originally spoke with them about was, we want to make sure that we're covering all of the rural areas. And so it seems like, and this is where your input is really critical, it seems like we could do that through 3 stakeholder meetings. One targeted at sort of the northern rural areas. And we thought maybe somewhere adjacent to what we have to keep in mind, that we need places where we can get hotel rooms, restaurants and things like that, because they bring in a team of, I want to say it's like 6 to 9 people, depending. So we were thinking somewhere like Athens, Gainesville, or Cartersville for sort of the northern meeting. Then we were thinking that potentially southwestern and southeastern. And southwestern could be Cordele, and then maybe southeastern could be Savannah. And I know again that Savannah is a city, but it just seems like the southeastern tier might be easier for folks to get to Savannah. But that's kind of where I think we need a little bit of your input.
One of the things that we need to realize is that a lot of these people will be coming from different areas of the country to be part of this team, and they do have to fly in. And so that was one of the concerns. And I think they'll get a good idea of going from place to place once they fly in or fly out. But I think they'll be in a car or in some type of, they'll be able to see the rural section that we're dealing with, and hopefully have at least one long road trip so they understand what we're talking about when we talk about transfer related issues and things like that, so they can see the physical geography that we have. I was more concerned that a lot of people would be, just from the Chicago office of the ACS, but some of the consultants that they use are, they're rural trauma providers. One of these is even maybe from Alaska. So, you have to understand that we are trying to get people into the area to fly in to see what's going on and try to piece together what we could do to help out rural Georgia as far as trauma is concerned. So I think they'll see parts of rural Georgia, but some of these are going to be in a little bit bigger places than what you think would be constitute rural Georgia as far as the trauma center. So any other comments on that?
And any comments specific to the location? I know up that 75 corridor, we have folks in Piedmont, Cartersville, Redmond, Floyd. Any of you on the phone call, it's really important to get your feedback. I don't think we necessarily have to do that northern meeting somewhere. Certainly doesn't have to be in your location. Their goal is not to go to a trauma center. So take a deep breath. That's not what they're here for. This is not another, sort of magnifying glass on your facility. I know, we're all have PTSD over that. But we do want to make sure that we can get the most people together, and they'll have, and we'll talk about this a little bit too, they'll have a pre-review questionnaire that we'll have to fill out. And so their goal is to get as much information on paper as possible so that when they actually meet with everyone, and I sent Gabby the stakeholder list last night, it's huge. We need some non-designated centers as well as the designated centers. It's not just a trauma game. They want to understand how, trauma interacts with the rest of the community. So that's why it's, important to, that we really choose the right locations. So, and I guess Hamilton, you guys are even kind of up on that, northwestern corridor. So any comments on that?
Liz, this is Jan from Piedmont, Cartersville. I think Cartersville will be a great location when you think about, just as far as getting off 75, it's very easy access and from a location standpoint. But we would be very open to that and would welcome it.
Hey, this is Tiffany from Floyd. I completely agree. I was actually going to suggest Cartersville as well. Some great places to eat there, and good hotels and easy access off 75.
Believe it or
Yeah.
not, Cartersville has been brought up more than one time in our meetings that we will take that into consideration. I think that's a great place too. Liz?
Yeah, I think we were actually just on the phone last night with a map in front of us, just kind of looking at places. And I think what you guys just mentioned, thanks for your comments, appreciate that, is that the easy access off of 75 almost means that they could do the Cordele and Cartersville piece,
Yeah.
adjacent to each other. And we're not sure yet. It could be the same teams that go around all three of the areas. One of the things that they asked us, and so this is a question for the folks in that sort of southern tier, is that they asked us if they could do 2 meetings instead of 3. And I certainly don't want our colleagues in North Georgia to feel shortchanged in any way, but it seems like in South Georgia, the state gets a little wider and a lot less, I mean, in the north, we have mountains to contend with, and they're not easy to get around. But in the southern part of the state, there's, vast expanses without, easy access roadways. So that's why we thought the 2 visits, one sort of southeastern towards the coast, and then one almost a little bit central, slightly west in Cordele. And Cordele also houses our state office of rural health. So it would be easy to get all those folks who are going to be critical to this. So for those of you who kind of sit below, Macon or below, what are your thoughts on that, on the 1 or 2 visits?
And I'll chime in real quick just to talk about some things that we talked about yesterday, Liz. And I think one of the things I was worried about is that Georgia has a vast expanse of land, but it also has a vast expanse of geography and different areas. I mean, you go to somewhere like, Nevada, you're going to see a lot of flat land. You're going to see very limited ecosystems. And what we have in Georgia is a lot of multiple variable ecosystems. Each one has their own issues related to how that affects trauma. Farming land versus mountainous areas all have their different issues that we can see. Our own rural-based trauma issues, farm accidents, hunting accidents, things down here versus things I think about in mountain times is recreational accidents, the big rivers up there where you have rafting trips, maybe drownings, bicycle accidents on the roads, or motorcycle accidents on the interesting highways that go through the mountains. So those different things are all things I think we need to comment on and deal with our own issues. And so I was very worried that if we do 2 visits alone, we're going to have a problem with them seeing really what Georgia's rural issues are about. And I think if they're going to be in larger centralized areas, if we do have to do something toward a bigger city, they're going to lose the flavor if they only have 1 or 2 meetings, where 3 meetings, you get to see a lot more of the state, you get to see a lot more of what's going on from the rural perspective, and that's what we want them to see. Any other comments on that? Again, this isn't.
I really like the idea of doing 2 places in the southeast and the south part of the state. I think to get good participation, we're going to really need that.
Right. And that's the other issue, I think, is as far as it's always difficult, even for us to get together for a state meeting. It's always difficult when you think about it. There's always somebody that's driving further than somebody else. but I think the 3 meetings would be a little bit better participation. And that's what we really want. We need everybody to participate in this to really get our bang for our buck here. Any other thoughts? All right, we should have hopefully an update in August about some more processes. We hope this, right now our tentative dates for the visit are, let me look on my calendar here, January. Is it
9th through the 13th, yep.
Right, so it's January 9th through the 13th. Is the tentative dates we have right now that we have set up. So this will be spinning up pretty rapidly through the fall, and we'll keep you informed as much as we can. All right, no other comments on that. We'll move on to access to specialty care. This is one of the first projects that we tackled last year, and we'd like to update this coming up. So we plan to send out updated questionnaires. And all we want is a centralized system that we can call upon each other to find out who has care available for a certain problem. Again, this goes back to the unique situation of Georgia and how we're trying to increase our trauma system and the organization of that trauma system. You know, one of the best examples I think that I've heard of in the past is, you know, ACS says that you should never send someone down the level of care. So a level 1 trauma center should not send somebody to a level 2 trauma center. But there was a case that they presented last year where Grady needed to send someone for adult ECMO to a level 2 trauma center in Atlanta. And that's just not the norm, but that's what we talk about when access to specialty care. We all don't have replant services online. I have a very active neurosurgery department as far as a level 3 is concerned. So those things are the things we need to know about for each other and how to get in touch with each other. So this was numbers, published numbers for transfer lines, if you had one, also published information for who the trauma medical director was at the time, who the trauma program manager was, who to get in touch with for certain things, what you did have available for specialty care, what you had available, and this would include a map. So as we try to spin this project up and do an update in August, we'll ask you, and we may come find you if we can't get information out of you, but we want to have contact information for everybody published in the state of Georgia. So if a level 1 trauma center needs to call and ask you a question, or we need to call a level 2 trauma center somewhere near us, we can get in touch with them no matter what time that is at night. This also kind of dovetails in one of the other things that we've started from the TMD side of things. We actually have utilized WhatsApp to have a communication. If we have a major mass casualty event, we could get online with each other on WhatsApp, and we could utilize those things. So we're trying to spin this up so it's more organized, and that just falls into that category. Any comments on that? Hopefully y'all all received the original access to specialty care kind of a hard copy handout that we gave out. We hope to redo that, what this project is, and we can give out the second edition, if you will, or 2.0 version. All right, no other comments? And the last thing we had on the agenda this morning in old business was web-based registry and contracted abstraction services. One of the things that Liz had mentioned to you earlier, if you'll look back at the minutes from the last meeting, the main thing we had with this was that we were concerned that everyone did not have the outcomes module. And with that amended budget, or mid-year budget that Liz was talking about, part of the money that you got in that was for everyone to go to the web-based registry. And so everyone has those funds. I want to stress that those funds are there. So everybody needs to look at that and make sure that you understand that you do have an amended budget. And so this is for all the level 3s and level 4s The level 3s themselves will get the report writer package. The level 4s, they're coming up with a custom reporter package. And then the state has also purchased the PRQ report writer package for everyone to include into this outcomes module. And so I think we've handled that issue at this point. Liz, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, the only thing we really haven't been able to address, and I don't have an easy answer for, and I know it's on the top of everybody's, you know, a lot of you, you know, particularly because 3s and 4s tend to be smaller centers, and if you're lucky enough to have a dedicated registrar, you pray that person doesn't fall, slip, break their leg or something, because you know, you're up the proverbial creek if you don't have that person for a period of time, and it's very easy to fall behind. So one of the things this group, you know, had raised concern about was the ability to have that contracted asset just in case there's, you know, periods where, you know, we have a lapse, and we don't really have a way to do that. And I know that, you know, Kelly is the GCTE registry committee chair. So I don't know if there's a way for that group to sort of package that up. The major problem for the commission is just, I can't contract for someone who's going to access your medical records, because as you all know, it's so difficult to get access to hospital, you know, which it should be, you know, but it can't be someone who's contracted through this office that does work for you. So it would have to be sort of a reimbursement thing, and we'd have to really kind of figure out what that looks like. But one of the things that we are going to do relative to your web-based registry, and you all received money, that's why I bring to your attention the additional monies that you received as part of the amended budget, because part of what you sign for your amended contract is that you're going to use the money for that purpose. And I know there's a couple level 3s, Cartersville in particular, who's not technically a contracted center. We're working on getting everybody on the same, you know, level of contract, whatever you want to call that. But, you know, everybody at least gets grant money every year. So we're trying to move to that. So even if you aren't so-called contracted, you still got money to deploy the web-based registry. And for many of you, for a couple of you, it's actually a little bit cheaper than it was for you to do your regular registry. But for, you know, for the majority, it's more expensive to do the web-based, although it really alleviates your IT infrastructure from having to do anything with a registry. And it mitigates all the backlog that you get waiting for your update to be installed, because you often have to schedule that with your IT person. So the funds are there as part of your either one-time grant that you got if you're not a contracted center, or if you contract with us in your amended dollars, you got the money to go ahead and do that. And the representative from ESO that handles that, Debbie Bowman, I think is her last name, she is aware. She has everybody's contact information, and she will be reaching out to you to get that started. And we're really excited that you can do that, because again, it should make things a lot smoother. The registry shouldn't be something really hard. It's our only window into what's happening, and it's going to be the engine for Gina and Dr. Todd and the Arbormetrics group, and really getting you guys back, and especially at the level 4 center level, because there is no TQIP for level 4. But having good data and your ability to put it in timely and get your data files sent off is really gonna propel us to the top of the list in terms of being able to, you know, to look at outcomes. So we're really excited about that. And then one of the things that we're going to do in the 2024 contract is that, as you know, your funding is divided up into your readiness and registry support. The 1s and 2s get uncompensated care. We're going to look at that for 3s and 4s too, because we know you are all doing your share of uncompensated care as well. So we have to measure that first so we can figure out how to inform that. But But the registry portion that you get right now, as I alluded to, is probably not enough to sustain the web-based hosting because it's going to be more expensive for the majority of you. So we will, in your 2024 contract, you don't need it for 2023 because you're just getting it started this year. But your, sustainability of it, we're going to increase that registry support to make sure that that we can keep going with that. And then Debbie will also be, she won't be doing it herself, but she'll be working on the one thing we were able to pay for directly was that report writer. Did Dr. Patterson mention the report writer package for level 3s? And then the custom report package for level 4s. So already have the PI group. I don't know if John is on the call, but we've had a lot of email dialogue about what that report writer customized package will look like for level 4s, but it's largely going to be around transfer outs because that's the biggest thing for the 4s is we want to make sure that for those critical patients, we're collecting data on transfer outs and what kind of things are happening and clinical picture in terms of hypotension, administration of crystalloid blood, et cetera, things like that. So lots of exciting things, and just make sure when the ESO reaches out to you about your web-based registry, you're not totally surprised. And then for the administrators on the call and TPMs, the money is in your amended contract, so you do have the funds for it.
Okay. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments?
Or any questions about that? I know a lot of people reached out about the level 3 PRQ package because level 3s are ramping up for consult visits, verification visits. And I should mention that we did have to push the verification requirement date back for level 3s. Was originally in your contract as June 30th, 2024. And now it's June 30th, 2025, because the ACS is backed up for that.
Good to know that again, Liz. Thank you. All right. So appreciate everybody's time. I did want to mention a couple of things. We'll look forward to seeing everybody, as many people as we can, in August at the meeting at the King and Prince. Again, I think the meeting will be the night of, or the afternoon of the 10th and the 11th, I think, and then dovetailing in with the Georgia chapter of the American College of Surgeons for the rest of the week. Did want to mention that the hotel room block is full, but keep checking as rooms may open up intermittently, but there are several other things down there available if you need to find a room down there. We won't be having a formal meeting there as far as the level 3, level 4 committee, but hopefully we'll be having some informal get-togethers. To stop you, see any of us, stop by, talk. Let's talk about problems so we can keep things on the move while we have continued momentum. Like to propose our next meeting be October 21st. It's a Friday on again 7 to 8 a.m. So we can follow up with the August meeting and get set for the upcoming Pennsylvania group coming down to look at the level 4s, and then also getting ready for our ACS consult, rural consult visit in January. So any problems with that? Any conflicts anybody knows about right off the bat? On October 21st, Friday morning, 7 to 8 o'clock. All right, we'll go ahead and put that down. Look for your minutes coming up at some point. Any other comments, questions from the group?
Mr. Patterson, this is Rachel Hand from West Georgia. I have a question for Liz specifically. Liz, I'm going to go back to this web-based registry and the grant money that you were talking about that's available for all of the level 4s. Now, we were just newly designated in May, and so I'm assuming that we don't fall into that category, that we don't have any money available. If so, how would I learn about that?
Yes, that's correct. And I'm happy to chat with you offline, but yeah,
Perfect.
if you're newly designated, you wouldn't, our budgets are done so well in advance, you know, that you weren't part of that because you weren't designated yet when they voted on it.
That's what I thought. I
But
just
yeah.
wanted clarification. Thank you.
No problem.
Patterson, this is Courtney. I'm
Courtney.
looking for some help from the group. I was recently appointed. The governor set up a healthcare task force on workforce, and I'm on that commission. And the reason I think I'm on that commission because I've been kind of vocal about trying to figure out why we can't get immediate transport for critical trauma patients and the difficulties there. And I'm just asking if members of the group have specific information that they could share with me so I can better understand their trials and tribulations about getting EMS transport in a timely manner. So they can reach out to me offline. I'd love to hear from them.
Courtney, are you looking for just individual case issues? Or are you looking for overall issues related to their trauma center as far as the surrounding counties? How would you really want that?
I think the thing that I'm looking for is trying to get a roundup of it. If there's always going to be those times that you just don't have something. What frustrates me more so than anything else with my profession, I find that some of the 911 centers or services are just saying, hey, we don't do inter-hospital transports. That's what I'm really looking to hear. Through the EMS subcommittee, we give grant monies, not a huge amount of grant monies for equipment grants. And I'm kind of frustrated. We give money to services and then they don't do trauma transfers. So I'm looking for specific issues, but more so than that, I'm really looking for is there an issue in an area that they can't get help? I know that there are. I've talked to the ACCG people. I've talked to a lot of EMS people. Talked to some hospital people, and one of the things I'm hoping that we can do. Damien is doing a talk at the GHA Rural Center, and I'm helping with that. And I'm trying to just get enough information so as we go forward to present this stuff eventually to the governor, that we can make our case that we've got to redesign our system so that we can take care of time-sensitive issues.
Right.
So anybody who's got any thoughts about that, please reach out to me. I'd be tickled to talk to you.
Well, I think one of the things, Courtney, that we need to look at, I mean, what I would appreciate from my standpoint, where I'm at, because I deal with this a good bit, and being on the border of Georgia and Florida, we deal a lot with some transfers into Florida and the surrounding counties because they can't get them to our facility. They'll transfer them to a Florida facility. The biggest thing that I think the whole state needs is data related to this. We need, one thing I don't understand is how the system's set up. I understand a lot of the issues related to county designations in the state. We have the largest amount of counties for any state in the union. Each one of those has their own bureaucracy. Each one's required to have a public health service or a public health services, I think is better said. But I think number one, we need all this stuff. We need an overview of it. We need the data. We need to know what counties have available. A lot of us don't have any idea what we have. And ultimately, that's the only way to drive a plan. Suggestions aren't really going to drive a plan. One of the things that we have put together for the ACS consult visit is that question. And hopefully that will reveal some directives that we can go, but that'll be in January and beyond. And then we're going to want some kind of plan. I know that the GQIP, TQIP Executive Council, which I sit on with, I'm the rural representative to that. There's 5 other level 1 trauma centers, and they think things differently than we do. As far as they don't understand this process that we have to get people to transfer to them. They always think we transfer inappropriate things or things that aren't worked up correctly. So we each have different viewpoints, and the only way to change those viewpoints, I think, is going to be major data. And so that's where I think we've got to come back to data on this. Ultimately, the what we mentioned today, the web-based registry and contracting abstraction services and those report writers, that's going to be able, in the upcoming arborometrics process, is going to help us. The level 4 trauma centers, for the first time, we're going to be able to give information to everybody else to show them what they're having problems with. And the level 3s are going to be able to increase the amount of reports. And so the main thing we need to drive all this with is data. That's what we got to have, is data. I know that's I used to think that when everybody asked for data, I thought they were crazy, because I lived each individual case. But data is going to be driving everything, and ultimately that's going to help us come up with a new plan, and that's what the governor wants, I think, is a new plan. Any other comments? All right, well, let's keep the discussions going. I appreciate everybody's time. I know that's valuable, but I think we're doing a great amount of work here. I think we've got the most momentum in the state. And I think as fragmented as we are, or as small as we are, we put all our pieces together. I think we can become larger than the other side of things, if you will, as far as hearing our voice from the rural areas of Georgia. So thank you very much for your time. I'll push for adjournment at this point. If anybody has any other comments, please let me know.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it. Yeah, second to that, any opposition?
A second.
All right. Thank y'all very much. We'll see each other hopefully in August, and please let's have some good conversations at the meeting in August. See y'all then.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Patterson.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
See y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.